Good morning. Yes, thank you all for being here early on a Saturday morning. It is definitely early. My name is Parag, Batavia. My background is robotics, but my primary passion and interest is in entrepreneurship. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I spent a lot of my career working on technology, but then I decided to focus on actually how to take that technology and move it out to the real world, and hence my interest in entrepreneurship. I didn't get it right the first time. I got it very, very wrong multiple times before I got it right. And that's where the whole topic of resilience comes in. So if you want to ask slides, is there thank you. If you go to the next one, please. So there are many, many ways to get companies wrong. I actually started 3 companies before I got the third one's a charm for me. So my first company, I not only had a bad idea, I executed it really poorly. But I learned from that, and I started a second company, in which I had a really good idea, so I thought it was a really good idea. I also executed that really poorly. So it wasn't until the third time, trying 3 times, deciding I still want to pursue something, that I focused on a specific area of robotics that I was passionate about, where I saw a lot of opportunities, and I went for it. That company, third time, ended up being the charm, and I got a successful exit, got to do cool things after that. And so after that exit, I now spend time at Carnegie Mellon, where I'm teaching companies on entrepreneurship, and I also spend time working with startups, mentoring them, helping them avoid the mistakes that I've made, or after they inevitably make them, help them pivot to whatever comes next and then how to do better the next time. So go to the next slide, please. So why start a robotics company? To me, the most important thing was you can focus and solve real world problems. We have got so many challenges in our society right now around labor availability, around safety, around sustainability, climate change. There are so many structural, real world problems that are going on for which autonomy and automation and robotics can provide a solution that helps keep people safer, that keeps them safer again from the sort of notion of dull, dirty, dangerous jobs, that augments what they're doing. And so when you think about that, you look at all those societal problems, and just take a couple of specific examples. If you look at agriculture, we need to make, by 2050, about 80% more food in the world. And the reason for that is a wonderful reason. If you're looking at a lot of the developed nations, the average calorie intake per person is increasing. So that's a good thing. Fewer people are starving, fewer people are going hungry, but we need to produce more food. But because of climate change and other issues, at best we'll have 20% more arable land, farmable land, by 2050 or so. So the rest of that increase in food production needs to come from productivity increases. Autonomy, agriculture, robotics, automation, all provides an avenue for that. If you look at construction, the world is continuing to build, right? There's more, cities are growing, facilities are being put up, but at least in the US, the average productivity of labor around construction hasn't gone up in 20 years. And that's because the tools just haven't been available to make construction more efficient. So again, it's another place that automation and robotics can play a role. So say you're interested in this, right? If you're interested in saying, hey, I might be interested in starting a robotics company, what does that actually mean? First off, is you have to find a problem. And one common mistake I see so many of my students make is that instead of falling in love with a problem, they fall in love with the technology. They say, oh, this is really cool. I built something, it's fun, I'm going to figure out a way to make money off of it. That doesn't actually usually work. What really matters is falling in love with a problem. Find something you're passionate about solving. Look for challenges in the world and areas that you care about. Figure out where you can maybe contribute to a solution to that, and then launch your business. It's important to learn about the problem, right? So many of us go into things and we say, all right, I'm going to understand this, I'll learn a little bit about this. You have to walk the walk. If you're interested in agriculture, if you're interested in construction or mining, if you're interested in warehousing and logistics, whatever that is, you have to spend time to learn about that, right? And that takes time, effort, and energy, and you're going to challenge yourself. And most of you, especially, you know, if you're a technologist or you're interested in sort of the nuts and bolts of building cool things, learning about somebody else's industry isn't necessarily the most interesting thing, but you have to take that time and effort and energy to do that. The other thing, and this is where sort of the notion of resilience really comes in, is you have to go out and talk to potential customers. And you're going to talk to these customers, and they're going to tell you your idea is stupid. And they're going to tell you, I have no need for this. I do this a different way. It's already way better. Why would I pay you? Why would I care about what you're doing? And that's where you can take one of two approaches. You can push back, and you can say, well, you know, I disagree with you. I know I'm right. I've built this. It's really cool. I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to see what happens. Or you can listen to the customer. You can understand their point of view. They're the expert in the business that you're trying to sell to, right? So pay attention, learn from that, and you know, understand what that customer is trying to tell you so that you can adopt that and incorporate it into what you're trying to build. And sort of being able to take that information and integrate it into what you're trying to build is something I spend a lot of time talking to my students about. Because again, you know, people are passionate about the technology, they're passionate about what they want to build, and they don't want to hear that, you know, their baby isn't as pretty as maybe they thought it was. So it takes a certain mindset to be able to be open to that criticism, to listen to it, to not internalize it, to not necessarily see it as a reflection of your value, but to just say, hey, I'm getting useful advice from somebody who really knows something. I should listen to that, and I should incorporate that into what I'm trying to do. Sort of the other bit of advice I give my students, and this is challenging for them also, because people like to build cool, you know, if you're interested in robotics, if you're interested in technology, you typically want to build the coolest kind of technology you can build, right? Sometimes the simplest answer is best. Find the simplest solution to your problem and incorporate that, right? There's no reason to make something that's overly complex, overly complicated. It becomes harder to build, manufacture, support, test, all of that stuff. The other area, and I'm really sitting here trying to condense 2 semesters worth of classroom material into about 7 or 8 minutes. The other area that I strongly emphasize with my students is the idea of learning to pivot. And this is another area where resilience and being able to rebound becomes really important. Because you're going to get to that point in your company where you realize there is just no path forward that makes sense in the direction I'm going. I'm not going to be able to solve the problem, build a technology, sell to a specific customer. I'm going to have to find a different solution. And sometimes that solution can be dramatically different, right? You may have to completely give up on a core approach you care about. You may have to say, instead of working, you know, with one customer, I'm going to move to another. And you know, sort of being able to, again, make that decision and have the strength and fortitude to continue pushing on. And in my own company, I pivoted multiple times. I tried many things that didn't work. You know, I built stuff that I ended up, you know, wasting time, effort, energy, money in building that didn't go anywhere. But we still kept at it. And that's what ultimately made us successful. So understanding that, you know, success is not a straight up and to the right line on a graph. It is a curvy, sort of hard to, you know, draw. It's going to loop back on itself. It's going to look really, really wavy. And you're going to take 2 steps back. You're going to take 1 step forward. You're going to take 3 steps back, 2 steps forward. And at some point, you're going to take, you know, you do this often enough and long enough, you're going to be taking more steps forward than you are taking backwards. And that's when the success starts to come in. So yeah, can you go to the next slide? So say after hearing all that, you decide you still want to pursue building a company in robotics. If you're going to do it, I want to strongly emphasize that Pittsburgh's a great place to do it. So one of the few hats I wear involves convincing companies to either stay in Pittsburgh or move to Pittsburgh. And if you care about robotics and that whole industry, we've got over 100 robotics companies here in town, which a lot of people don't know, across a whole bunch of different industries: construction, manufacturing, inspection, healthcare, retail, mining, delivery, warehousing, education, you name it. We've got companies here in town. Driverless cars, obviously. So many of you have probably seen Argo, what used to be Argo cars with Latitude, or even other cars driving around without drivers. So much of that technology was developed here in Pittsburgh. So many of those jobs are here in Pittsburgh. So we've got something like 8,000 people working in robotics here in Pittsburgh. All of those folks have faced their own challenges in getting to where they are. All of these companies that have been started are led by folks who've run into problems, who've had to face challenges, who've had to overcome obstacles, and who have the internal resilience and fortitude to be able to do that. These companies range in size from 10 to 15 people to well over 1,000, couple thousand people. So if you care about robotics, Pittsburgh's a great place to be, and I'm always going to try to sell the region as a wonderful place to be an entrepreneur and to start a company. Next slide, please. So how do you get there, right? There's lots of paths to getting there. Education is obviously one of those paths, right? You take the right classes, you go to college, obviously we've got Carnegie Mellon in our backyard. A wonderful place for robotics. And I will tell you, if you go into robotics, you graduate high school here, you get to CMU robotics, your resilience and fortitude is going to be tested. I didn't do my undergraduate there. I did my PhD there, and there were plenty of times I thought the only reason I'm here is because somebody in the admissions office typed in the wrong social security number when sending out an admissions letter, and that's how I got there, right? So it was, those 4 years was the most challenging of my life. You talk about trying to finish a PhD, trying to create this new body of research that nobody else has done before, realizing that one, your idea is wrong, or two, somebody else did it 20 years ago and you just didn't bother to check, right? So there was a lot of restart, a lot of having to sort of dig deep and decide, do I really want to do this or not? In the end, I did. I never looked back, and I was super grateful for being able to do that. So certainly, there's educational opportunities that are unique to this region that are available to you. The other thing is, if you're going to do this, you need to learn to think interdisciplinarily. So, anything in robotics, typically it's not just writing software. It's a combination of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and software. And then if you're interested in entrepreneurship and business, you have to understand aspects around business, right? You have to understand financing and marketing and customer acquisition, right? You have to sort of be a jack of all trades. And that is, some people are cut out for that and some people are not. And you have to think to yourself, is that a road that I want to go down? But if it is, being interdisciplinary in nature is incredibly important. Looking for opportunities around projects and internships wherever you can is also super critical. All of these things take energy and time, and they'll take you off the path that you might normally be on, and will require you to sort of go beyond, right? So, but again, if you want success, that's going to be necessary. Next slide. So, the final thing I want to mention, and I want to go backwards a little bit and tell a little bit of story about myself. It is sort of make the point that key to resilience is finding opportunities wherever you are, because you may not end up where you think you're going to go. And this is really addressed to all the high school students here, who are, especially if you're a junior. If you're a senior, I'm going to guess you probably have a rough idea where you're going to college already. If you're a junior, you may not yet. Right? My daughter's a junior; she's just starting to figure this stuff out. When I was your age and a high school student, I was in semi-rural Wisconsin, public high school. Okay, not great. We had one AP class, but I was convinced. I knew I wanted to do tech. I was convinced I wanted to go either MIT, Caltech, or Stanford. I applied to all the schools. I tailored myself to all the schools. I visited those schools. I probably got rejected by all those schools. So I ended up at I got into two schools: the University of Wisconsin-Madison, because that's where I lived, and the University of Southern California. Today, USC is a top engineering school, right? It's, I think, a top 10 engineering school, actually. And to get into USC, that's a big deal. When I got into it, it had two alternative names: the University of Second Choice and the University of Spoiled Children. And it was a roughly 50 to 70% acceptance rate. Getting into USC was not a big deal in the early 90s. But I said, all right, I'm going to go to California, leave Wisconsin, and I'm going to make the best of the opportunity I have there. And I was interested in robotics, and I had taken robotics classes in high school. So I get to USC, and there's a robotics lab. I'm like, oh cool, maybe I can get a job there. This thing workstation job. And they're interviewing, and I see a little robot that was the exact, it's called a Heat Kit Hero 1, they don't exist anymore. It was the exact same robot that I used to work on in my electronics class in high school. So I'm like, hey, I know about that robot. And they wanted to use it for something, so I was able to immediately dive in, and because of the knowledge I gained in high school, and say, and take advantage of this opportunity to get hired by this robotics lab. I spent 4 years, if I wasn't in classes or hanging out with friends, I was in this robotics lab for 4 years of high school, or of college. I got amazing mentorship. I got to work with amazing grad students, and I got to work with amazing faculty. Those faculty said, hey, if you want to do this as a career, you need to go to Pittsburgh and go to Carnegie Mellon. So I never grew up thinking someday I want to live in Pittsburgh, but I've been here 25 years, and only because of that class I took in high school, which exposed me to a robot, which I then happened to see at the University of Second Choice, and that got me into a robotics lab, that got me into Carnegie Mellon, that got me to where I am today. So the point I want to leave all of you with is, as you go through college applications, I hope all of you get into the schools of your first choice, but if you don't and you end up somewhere else, resilience is important. You're gonna have opportunities that you haven't realized yet. And taking advantage of those opportunities and being open to them and making the most of it is what's gonna get you ahead in life, in whatever path you decide you want to go to, whether it's robotics or entrepreneurship or whatever it is. So I just want to leave you with that one last message that, again, having a daughter who's going through all this right now, maybe she'll get to the school she wants to, maybe she won't, and I try to tell her over and over again, if you have the right attitude, the right mindset, and the right resilience, you're going to be fine. So that's the last thing I want to leave you with. My name is Parag, Batavia. I'm actually faculty at Carnegie Mellon. Thank you.